Welcome to Comfortable Shoes Studio. I'm Leslie, and this is another episode of Art Making, but it's actually a chat while I draw episode. I haven't done one of these in a hot minute, and I thought it was time to revisit the chat while I draw. This episode, I'm going to be talking about sketches and what I see a sketch is, and sort of the differentiation between a sketch and a finished drawing. And yeah. Alright, so I've got a limited amount of time to record this morning, and it would probably help if I scripted these a little more than I do. I just give myself a basic outline. So in this episode, I am actually drawing from memory and imagination. I'm doing one of my blob people in watercolor, doing a quick sketch with a pencil just to map it out, and then I'll go back into that with watercolors to add the color in. And so this episode came about because a friend of mine forwarded me an email about someone who is musing about the idea of sketching and using their materials. And as you know, that's always something I am wanting to read about and talk about. So sketching. A sketch is meant to be a reference for a more finished drawing, a more finished painting. So it's a sketch to me is a area where I'm working out my ideas around an image, around a thing I'm trying to create. And a sketch is not a finished piece of artwork, in my opinion. A sketch can be very interesting art wise, but they're not an evolved and finished artwork. Now, I am someone who does very immediate drawings and I do sell them. I take these little sketches and I make them look a little nicer and I sell them. But I still don't see them as a finished artwork. And you're probably scratching your head and you're like, well, if it's not a finished artwork, what is a finished artwork? I think this is where some social media kind of muddies the water in terms of like what a sketch is and artwork. So for me, a sketch is a place where I'm working out ideas. My sketchbook is a place where I'm working out ideas. Currently, my sketchbook is a series of 300 and something watercolor postcards because I'm a doofus and I bought a lot of them. So I'm not working in an actual sketchbook. But the idea of a sketch is that you are using this as a quick, fast way of working out ideas. And that's not to say that a finished sketch isn't beautiful. And I want to talk a little bit about this like sketchbook thing that I just brought up about sketchbooks and social media. This is something I work with kids now. I work in an after school program where I'm teaching kids how to make art, and we're doing some art therapy stuff. It's a cool job. But kids come in with this idea of what their sketchbook has to look like. And then, I'm like, all right, we're going to do a scribble drawing. We're going to pass your sketchbook to the right. And then everyone draws in everyone else's sketchbook. And we do these things where we break the idea that a finished sketchbook is not just filled with ideas and doodles and that this sketchbook doesn't have to be perfect. We try to break out of the idea of this perfectionism, and I see a lot of videos on YouTube. I watch a ton of these videos on YouTube of art sketchbook flip throughs, and I really think that those sketchbook flip throughs, you see the videos where people are like, oh, I got accepted into this art school based off of the work in this sketchbook. And really, that sketchbook is filled with finished, polished artwork. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm saying that that is not what a sketchbook is all about. I mean, that's a form of sketchbook, but I think really calling that a sketchbook is not true to what a sketchbook is. Like a sketchbook is a place where you work. It's where you do your thumbnails. It's where you do bad sketches. It's where you make art that is never going to see the light of day, that you're not going to share with people. And these videos where people are showing off their really polished artwork in their sketchbook, that's not to me the purpose of a sketchbook. I mean, when I like give a kid a sketchbook or I open my sketchbook, the whole purpose of that sketchbook is that I am showing that I have a work ethic and that I know how to use my sketchbook as a tool for refining my art practice. And that, for me, is the most important aspect of this whole thing, is that I'm refining my art process. So all of these videos where I've been drawing these blob people and I've been making art with blob people in them is about me refining my art practice so that when I'm out sketching from life, I can very quickly capture the idea of a person with a blob, um, and or a gesture drawing that's very immediate, very quick. And the idea for me is that these sketches are capturing a moment in my life. They're capturing the essence of an image. And so when we are looking at these more finished, more polished artworks that people are using to apply to colleges and whatnot, those are actually refined artworks in and of themselves. They're more of a, here's the best of my art, not my working sketchbook. And so one of the things that I'm always encouraging folks to do is to think of their sketches as just a place to work out an idea, sort of like, scratch paper for math problems, you know, doodles and drawings. They all capture the essence and the idea of a place. And for me, that's what the sketch is all about, is taking that idea, giving it form and substance, and then we're going to take that idea and we're going to move it to a large sheet of watercolor paper. We're going to move it to a canvas or a panel, or, a large chunk of cardboard, and work on it some more. Um, anyway, the idea is that the sketch is not the finished artwork. And I say that as someone who is currently working on watercolor postcards because I'm foolish and bought 300 of them as my sketchbook, but I'm also taking those sketches, I'm bundling them up, and I'm putting them on my Ko-fi account and selling them. So a sketch can be a finished piece of art, but there's something very different in that sketch than what is intended to be a finished piece of art, if that makes sense. Um, I'm going to be talking about this for a couple of these voiceover episodes, just because I've got a bunch of these to do, and it seems like I finally got my microphones working with DaVinci Resolve. It was a ridiculous problem, and you just got to remember to like hit the right buttons at the right time. Um, but anyway, with that, I'm going to say thank you. I appreciate you being here and listening and watching, recording some more episodes. If you really liked what I had to say, leave a comment, give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you hated it. If you really, really liked it, you can head over to my Ko-fi account. There's a link in the description. And you can follow me there for more of this sort of commentary. With that, thanks, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.